It was a gloomy afternoon in the small town of Ravenswood. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, and the air smelled of rain. Detective Arthur Lane sat in his cozy office, sipping on a cup of steaming tea. The room was filled with the scent of old books and polished wood. Just as he was about to finish his tea, the door creaked open and a young woman rushed in, her face pale and her hands trembling. "Detective Lane, you have to help me," she cried. "My brother, Samuel, has gone missing." Detective Lane gestured for her to sit down. "Calm down, miss. Tell me everything." The woman introduced herself as Clara Bennett. She explained that her brother, Samuel, was a weather scientist who had been studying a strange phenomenon in the clouds above Ravenswood. He had been working on a secret project, and the night before, he had left a cryptic note on his desk. "The clues are in the clouds. If I don't return, look to the sky." "He hasn't been seen since," Clara said, tears welling up in her eyes. Detective Lane leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin. "Clues in the clouds, you say? Interesting. Let's start by visiting his laboratory." Samuel's laboratory was a small, cluttered room filled with maps, weather instruments, and stacks of notebooks. Detective Lane began searching for clues. He noticed a map of Ravenswood with strange markings near the old observatory on the hill. One of Samuel's notebooks lay open on the desk, filled with sketches of clouds and notes about unusual weather patterns. "Look at this," Lane said, pointing to a page. Samuel wrote about a rare type of cloud formation that only appears once every few decades. He believed it held some kind of secret. Clara frowned. "But what does that have to do with his disappearance?" "I'm not sure yet," Lane replied. "But we're going to find out." The detective and Clara made their way to the old observatory on the hill. As they climbed, the clouds above grew darker, and a light drizzle began to fall. The observatory was abandoned, its windows broken and its doors creaking in the wind. Inside, they found more of Samuel's equipment, including a telescope pointed at the sky. Detective Lane peered through the telescope and gasped. The clouds above Ravenswood were swirling in an unnatural pattern, forming shapes that almost looked like symbols. "This is no ordinary weather," Lane muttered. Samuel was onto something big. As they searched the observatory, Clara found a small, locked box hidden under a pile of old papers. Inside was a letter addressed to her. "Clara," the letter read, "if you're reading this, it means I've uncovered something dangerous. The clouds are not what they seem. They're a code, a message from someone or something. I've decoded part of it, and it points to a location deep in the forest. If I don't return, follow the clues. Be careful." With the letter in hand, Detective Lane and Clara ventured into the forest. The rain grew heavier, and the trees seemed to close in around them. After hours of searching, they stumbled upon an old abandoned cabin. Inside, they found Samuel, tied to a chair and unconscious. "Samuel!" Clara cried, rushing to her brother's side. Detective Lane quickly untied him, and Samuel slowly regained consciousness. "You found me," he whispered weakly. "I knew you would." Samuel explained that he had discovered a secret group using the clouds to send coded messages. They had kidnapped him to keep him from exposing their plans. "The clues in the clouds were meant to lead you here," Samuel said. "I knew you'd figure it out." Back in Ravenswood, the storm finally broke, and the clouds began to clear. Detective Lane handed the evidence over to the authorities, who promised to investigate the mysterious group. Samuel and Clara were reunited, and the town returned to its quiet, peaceful self. As Detective Lane walked back to his office, he looked up at the sky. The clouds were now just clouds, but he couldn't help wondering what other secrets they might hold. For now, though, the mystery was solved.